The microphones are humming, the headphones are charging, and the console is lighting up. It's time to take Linux for a spin across space and time. I'm Wendy, and I'm joined by my brilliant companion, Bill, as we board our virtual TARDIS to explore the universe of Linux, open source tech, gaming, and everything in between. The banter is friendly, the conversation is occasionally on topic, and the adventure is always bigger on the inside. This week, we're materializing around, well, all the stuff we've been up to. So grab your sonic screwdrivers, or at least your terminal, and let's launch into episode 112. So it's actually great to say that I'm happy to see you, Bill, and this time not in person, but we have gotten to do that at least once now.
We did get to meet in person. That was really cool.
Yes, it was. Yes.
But I suppose we should tell everybody the context of that meeting and kind of how it happened.
Yeah, I guess that would make a heck of a lot more sense. Well, as you all know, my team had a competition in Massachusetts. Thankfully, Bill doesn't live too awfully far from there. We shipped some stuff to him. He brought it to us after we flew into Massachusetts and then got to watch the kids' presentation for both their project and their robot design kind of stuff. And you had some amazing feedback for them. It was so much fun. Even my youngest recognized you, which was even more hilarious.
It was pretty funny because I pulled up to where you guys were staying and I drove past it at first because it was kind of night out, couldn't see, dark road.
Yeah, and it's tucked back a little bit.
It's tucked back a little bit. And so I pull in and out comes your son who was like, "Hey, Bill, what's up?" Just completely stone cold delivery. "Hey, what's happening?" As if he sees me every day.
All the time, right? Yeah.
Absolutely threw me off. I had a whole intro planned and a joke and everything in the brain. And he somehow kind of unwound all of that and scattered it.
Threw it out the window,
places.
Yeah.
But the kids did a phenomenal job presenting both their project and the robot. And it was my pleasure to be there and listen to them. They all took turns really well. They spoke really well. And the level of confidence that they showed was probably the most impressive. None of them had stage fright. I felt like they were really subject matter experts in their field, and they had passion for what they were talking about.
Yes. Yes. And you have to keep in mind that most of them had been up since at least 5 a.m. Mountain Time. So by the time we reached you, yeah, they'd been up for a lot of hours, long day traveling, all of that good stuff. And they still happened to pull it off. So it was fun. It was a ton of fun to have you there for their presentation and all of that stuff. Now, after you dropped everything off to us, you got to go on a vacation. How did that go?
So I did go on vacation not long after I saw you. That's why I wanted to kind of time everything accordingly. But my vacation consisted of visiting some family and friends around where I grew up, catching a Boston Red Sox game along the way, which is in my beloved Fenway Park. And in fact, some of my pictures behind me and other things in this office, which you cannot see in this camera, are based around my affinity for Boston sports.
Well, I didn't get to catch a game, but I was in Boston.
And based upon your shirt, I actually can translate that. And let me do that for our audience. That means a really smart person in local Bostonian language. So yes, wicked smart just means a really smart person, a genius.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I first saw it, because I'm definitely a fan of the Boondock Saints movies, that's immediately what I actually thought of first. But it works.
Now, I wish you had been able to dunk said children into the ocean. That would have been a incredible East Coast ceremony to, unceremoniously pitch them into the harbor. But I did it for them. I jumped into the ocean
good.
While I was on vacation, and let's just say it was absolutely frigid.
I bet it was.
It was really, really cold. And this week here at my house, it's been averaging over 100 degrees. And I wish I could jump into the freezing cold ocean right now.
Go back to Boston or somewhere along the coast and take another dip. Have a swim, yeah.
My boss has a house not far from where I grew up, actually, and I asked him how the traffic was getting to the beaches and stuff, and he said, you cannot get anywhere in this town at all. The streets are packed, the beaches are packed, the stores are packed. So I'm just going to sit in my house with my air conditioning on. I'm going to wait until everybody leaves, and then I'm going to go to the beach.
That makes sense. So one of the things that I noticed that is way different about that area than where I live is there is flippin' water everywhere. There are like lakes everywhere. So do people swim in those as well, or did they just like head for the ocean?
Depends on the lake. Unfortunately, in recent years, a lot of them have been closed due to environmental concerns such as high bacteria, contamination,
Oh, okay.
Invasive seaweed species, but a lot of the locals there will go to the ponds and the lakes if the beaches are just too busy because they're tucked away in
Right. There
various
was one
parts
right
of
next
town.
to the house that we were staying at. So
And you could have thrown them in.
I could have thrown them in. Our days were so packed, it just didn't happen, but we should have.
What places did you get to see in Boston along the way? Did you go on any fun trips or?
So we started out at the Boston Commons, and we did part of what they called the Freedom Trail, and then we took the ferry over to see the USS Constitution. So that was our day in Boston. We did ride, of course, the subway, so that was new for all of these Idaho kids. But it was better because we had like this great big Jeep Wagoneer, massive SUV to fit all of us. And so getting that through the streets of Boston and parking was not something we wanted to do. So at the end of the line, we parked there, got on the subway and took it into town. And then the second day that we had sightseeing stuff, we actually went into New Hampshire to Concord and did some other historical sightseeing kind of stuff around that area. So I could have spent like a week in Boston just seeing stuff. I had so much fun in Boston, although it was still hot that day too, as we were doing our march around different places and humid. Yeah, very different. Very, very different than home when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the next 3 days they were in competition and then we flew home. So not as much sightseeing as I would have liked to, but I did enjoy what we got to see. It was a lot of fun. Boston is a very interesting town. I've never been east before. So for me, seeing the contrast of the old architecture with the new architecture, threw me off a little bit. I'm like, it's very interesting and trying to balance all of that in my head. But it was fun. I would go back. It kind of sounds like this event is going to be happening yearly, and there's a possibility that Idaho will have a ticket every year. Not saying that we will get an opportunity to go next year. It just kind of depends on how the kids do and how much effort they put into it. There's a lot of ups and downs that could potentially get us there. But if we did have a ticket, I'd 100% go back without a shadow of a doubt. I would definitely go back to the area. I enjoyed it. Even though you said that Dunkin' Donuts, how did you put it, keeps the East Coast angry and something else. Like, I didn't find them that angry.
Depends on the time of day. But since you were in Concord, New Hampshire, I will give you a pro tip the next time you go back to Concord. Along Interstate 93, at one of the rest stops, there is a coffee shop called the Uncommon Joe.
Okay.
And that is the place where they make their iced coffee with frozen concentrated espresso ice cubes. So the coffee actually gets stronger as you drink
as it melts. Okay.
Yep.
I love it. I will be going there if we get to go back 100%. We did eat a lot of local eateries while we were there, and I would have to say our best find was a little diner there it wasn't quite in Worcester. It was the town that we were staying in, but you could definitely tell that it was the local spot. They made everything homemade. The food was delicious. I'll share a picture with you, Bill. Our waitress was a kick in the pants. I loved her, but it was so much fun because, old fashioned diner, right? So all the locals are going up right around the bar to give the waitress and the cook like crap and stuff, and things are going. I had so much fun listening to their conversations. And of
Did it
course,
go something like, "Hey, how are you? What do you want?"
yes, it always started like that. Yeah. 100%. So I think food wise, we hit some awesome local spots too, instead of like the main drags, which was pretty good.
I'm so glad you had fun
Yeah.
and you got to take your kids on an experience that they'll never forget.
Oh, definitely.
And the fact that I have a personal connection to some of that project really was kind of fascinating. And I
Yes.
hope maybe next time, if you do come back to the East Coast and they're still interested in going to that area, that you have a chance to bring them down there. It's not too far. It's
Yeah.
only about an hour and change away to bring them down there. And I think they would have an absolute blast. So please send your students best wishes for me and thank them again for such an amazing presentation.
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. So how did you wrap up this vacation?
I wrapped it up by migrating my dad's MacBook to a new MacBook and taking backups of his data, making sure that everything was safe for him, taking him and my mom and my nephew out for Father's Day dinner. They were away for Father's Day, so I got to kind of do that during the week. But there's no bed like your own bed, and there's no house like your own house. And so as much fun as I had, it's always nice to come home and pet my animals and sleep in my own bed and sit in my own studio, office, man cave, whatever you want to call it, and kind of get back into the swing of things and see my colleagues and coworkers. And it was just enough of a break for me to kind of refresh and reset and get back into life a bit.
Your busy summer season, right? That's about to kick off, where you're maintaining all of that stuff for the schools server wise, and
already started.
Do you refresh their laptops or do you just wipe them? How does that work?
So here in our state, the majority of the student devices are Chromebooks. And each school kind of handles their Chromebooks differently. Some for the younger grades just keep them in a cart and they hand them out randomly to the students. As the students advance through their grades, they're issued a Chromebook to them. So as a student leaves a school to go to the high school, generally the Chromebook will stay at the lower grade. We power wash it. We actually, since COVID, have every summer we buy a series of like Lysol wipes, and the laptops get wiped from top to bottom. We use Goo Gone to remove any stickers and kind of make it look as clean as possible. We do what's called a power wash, which is a factory reset on a Chromebook. It gets reissued back into Google Admin and we assign it back to the next set of students. Now, some of those schools will actually lease the devices. So what happens is they'll lease the devices, then they send them back at the end of 3 years and they get a new cycle. And as long as your budget plans accordingly for that recurring cost that's always going to be there, then generally you get a constant set of new hardware. Some schools opt to do that. Some schools will, let's say, lease and then buy them out. And some schools just buy them outright. It depends on what the funding levels are like for that each year. This year, though, I have to think, what are we doing? Oh, we are rolling out Home Assistant at one of our schools to work on some IoT controls. They want to try it out and see how they can integrate some sensors and other projects into it. And I know I've talked about how to use Linux responsibly in education, and this is the perfect use case for it because it's a very customizable interface. There's no recurring costs, and you can use a lot of commodity hardware. And as long as you set up your Zigbee and Z-Wave and all the other kind of device networks correctly, and you secure the Wi-Fi for the Wi-Fi devices correctly, it's no different than setting up Home Assistant at home. It's just on a larger scale. And there are some other potholes you can hit along the journey that you have to be mindful of. But we're looking forward to seeing where it's going. It's obviously low risk and high reward. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you are rolling out, I know we're way off topic at the moment, but whatever. So it just kind of popped up to my head. But as you're starting to roll out more of these Home Assistant versions, or not necessarily versions, but instances, I guess you would say, in different places, is there a particular like Z-Wave or any of those other standards that you prefer, that's easier to work with, that you would recommend?
Good question. Different devices prefer different protocols from what I've learned. Now, Z-Wave
Okay,
has
so
been
it can be
around.
dependent on the device as well, the type of
Yes,
device.
exactly.
Okay.
So, for instance, most of the light switches
Mm-hmm.
are Z-Wave based because that's what was around originally.
Okay.
Then Zigbee came out, and Zigbee is where you'll find a lot of light bulbs. For instance, Philips Hue works off of Zigbee.
Mm,
Then you have just kind of Wi-Fi devices like garage door openers, other things that don't really fit into the other two protocols, let's say. The
right.
downside of a Wi-Fi based device that's running on battery is that Wi-Fi really drains batteries quickly. It uses a ton of power. So some people are a little iffy about using Wi-Fi just because of security implications and battery
Mm-hmm.
consumption and stuff like that. So I prefer Zigbee. Now there's a new thing called Matter, and Matter is a whole separate protocol that was released fairly recently. And Matter was kind of created as a collaboration between Google, Apple, and Amazon to have some sort of standard between all of these
All
different
of them. Yeah.
IoT or Internet of Things devices. So we're just going to kind of buy things that they want to buy and play around with and try it out. But what we're going to
Okay.
do, more importantly, going back to education, is we're going to sandbox this in a separate protected network, we'll say, at this school, because we want our students at this school to help develop this. So that doesn't mean that what they're going to develop will go into production necessarily, but I want to use this as an opportunity to teach some students real-time, real-world applications of how they can use open source technology in a constructive way to help people versus for harmful purposes. But I also want to teach them how to work as a team using Git. So check out a Git repo, make a branch, create those changes, send that as a request back up to the IT director, who then reads it over, checks it through, and if it's approved, it gets merged into the main project.
Nice.
So the
Heck
idea is that
yeah.
they're getting some real world skill sets that they'll need if this is a career that they want to pursue in
Mm-hmm.
computer science or anything else related to technology. When they go off to higher education, they already have some of those basics behind them.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I know even for my kids, it's one of the things that I've loved robotics. Project-based learning environments allow you so much more flexibility and to bring the other disciplines inside of it. So I love this. Right now I'm trying to think like, how can I do that here? Because I know I have wanted to do some smart home features. One of those is just not even if it's smart or not, but changing the main entry so there's a pin to come in and out. Because keys are a pain in the butt sometimes, and we've had issues with some of them. So was just thinking about going that route anyway.
Let's
We're
talk
renting.
offline. I have some options that may be very helpful to you, and I can give you some pitfalls to avoid.
Yes, that would be fantastic because we're renting. So anything that we put in has to go with us when we leave, right? We have to
Very
be able to
doable.
undo it and take it with us.
Very
100%. Yep.
So we've been talking a lot about school and education, and I know I've got a laundry list of projects that I've got to accomplish this summer. You brought up project-based learning, which I think is really neat. Tell me about some of the curriculum involved that you want to kind of touch base or touch upon with your students and what tooling you want to put into that.
So I know I've talked about Pybricks a lot in the past, that our robotics team uses it. We actually got to meet another team that was just across from us there that's also using Pybricks on their competition robot. And we were able to use a grant this year to upgrade from EV3s to the Spike Prime robots for our camps. And it was kind of reached a point that it was an absolute necessity. They don't make the EV3s anymore. Many of them, they've been used for camps for at least the last 13 years, have been dropped and can't get replacements for them. And they're really, really showing their age with as much as they've been used. And so now there's a bit of a conundrum of how do we go ahead and teach code? Because there was a nice base curriculum that came with the EV3s and their drag and drop blocks. There were things that I didn't like about their blocks, but for the most part, it worked well. I've helped with camps the last 2 years. And so we decided that, yes, we definitely wanted to use Pybricks for camps. I reached out to the awesome people there and said, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at doing. What do you think about that? And so they've definitely helped us out as we're getting started. But one of the things is, we need a new base robot for them to build, which I think the kids are pretty much got that figured out. They're using LeoCAD. My younger daughter, is right now using LeoCAD. If you haven't heard of LeoCAD, it's an open source project that's CAD for Legos. I know I've talked about it on the show, but we have had some new users step in, and it is absolutely amazing. So there's regular bricks, there's Technic bricks. You can break it down so that you're saying, okay, so these different parts are going in on this step, right? So you can eventually create instruction manuals to help build something. It is a very, very awesome program. If you haven't checked it out, do. And then how are we going to go ahead and teach code on this? So they have the written Python, which is still my favorite MicroPython, but I have gotten a chance to play with their drag and drop code for quite a bit lately and figuring out how properly to use it. And I was holding myself back at first because typically when I think of drag and drop code, you need one brick at a time. This brick does one very specific thing. Yeah, you might be able to change some parameters like speed or rotation or that kind of thing, but you're not dragging other blocks into the block. And with the way Pybricks has set up their drag and drop code, I was like, okay, our kids do not work in millimeters very well. Even in their written Python, they create a drive function so that they don't have to work in millimeters. The math's already in there. They put in what they want. It multiplies it by 10, and it's in millimeters for Pybricks, the way it wants to see the number, and then they can think in numbers that are just a little bit easier for them to process. And I was like, okay, how do I do this, right? Like, I don't see where I'm dragging in necessarily a math block and thing. Is they've made it so it's so easy to actually layer blocks in blocks. So there's a simple math function. I just drag that into what I have set for distance, and we're good to go. Just change it so that it's multiplication instead of addition. I don't know. I might have to right here be showing you a video of how some of that's working. I'm very, very impressed with the way it works. Is it still more limited as opposed to just using written MicroPython? Absolutely. But as far as any block code I've ever used, it is definitely the best that I've seen. And I can tell that those working on it not only have a passion for code, but they understand it needing to have this wider range of flexibility that you get with standard blocks. So I've been working on how do I teach kids this process. We were actually donated some laptops. There's a local ISP that has a grant. We didn't get the grant, but they said, hey, we're actually updating our laptops right now and we'll donate some. I don't know what they are. We'll pick them up on Thursday. So we're recording this on a Tuesday. In a couple days, I'll go pick them up, find out exactly what they are. I'll be installing Linux on them, getting them set up with Pybricks so that's ready to go. And then our students, our team members, the Tesla Coil team, actually gets a chance to play with the robots, play with the code. But I have a general idea now of how I want to teach it, the step by step. As you saw, I do have printers that are working now. And one of those printers that's working is my large format photo printer. So I can actually print books. I got a super fancy stapler. That's not here at the moment. And so I can actually use that to kind of help show larger, like right in front of them, what those blocks will look like, what those lines of code will look like, and helping them being able to create their own code for their robot. And the goal is, especially with the way Pybricks works, is when they leave our camp, they have a better understanding of how to code, not just with Scratch. They can see those imports. They have to do the initializations. One of the things they don't like about the Lego firmware, the stuff that comes with those bricks for the Spike Prime, is the kids don't actually have to do the full-on initializations. Yeah, they at some point have to say, okay, these two motors are my drive base, but otherwise it's sensing the motors, it's sensing the sensors and the port that they're on, and the kids aren't doing that manually. And I think it is so incredibly important for them in those beginning stages to understand that I need to tell the code where these things are so that they are using them properly on the robot. So I'm pretty excited about that. Once I have it all together, let's see, camps start the end of July. So I'm hoping to have everything laid out. Oh gosh, I guess that's coming up. July is coming really, really fast.
In about
so here
6
in a couple
days.
Weeks, yeah, here in about 6 days from record date, it's coming up pretty fast. So I'm going to have to get that all together here pretty soon and have a better outline. But I will share more of that with you, whether I do it on the show, which will probably be just a, hey, I've got it together, you can go check it out here, that kind of thing. It's one of those that would be good to be able to throw up on a GitHub and let other people who may be using it in a classroom or on with a team to kind of help them get started with this process.
And I like the fact that what you're also teaching your kids isn't just code, but also it's a process. It's a workflow. Mm-hmm. And making sure that the documentation associated with the project is nice, neat, clean, and tidy. So maybe having your kids learn some markdown along the way, whether intentionally or passively, I think will be absolutely critical to their long-term success and just building good habits as they go.
Right. I think that would be definitely good for our older team. They already have to put together a book for their presentations. And right now, the name of the book, Engineering Portfolio, they have to put that together for part of their presentations. And that can only be 15 pages. But it's very, very important that they're documenting everything they do and the steps that they're taking so we know what's going to be best to put in the book, all of those dates. So them learning Markdown would be fantastic. One of the things that makes me so very proud every single time my kids present is when, especially people who know what code looks like, looks at their robot code and the comments that they have on it, documenting their changes and all of that stuff. And they're like just blown away. They're so happy. They're like, this looks amazing. And I'm like, yes.
That was one of the first things I noticed when I was thumbing through the book they gave me.
Yeah.
Was that their code was commented in a way that it didn't just say blank function. It left a little blurb. Mm-hmm. This is what our intention was with this particular code. Yeah. And I thought this would be an amazing thing to throw up on a Git repo so that in the spirit of open source, everybody benefits from something like this.
Right, I might just go ahead and throw that up when I have like the curriculum kind of set up, what their code looks like from this season. And yeah, some of their functions are almost only one line. But for their robot and the particular thing that they're doing, part of the reason why we do that is so it doesn't matter who picks up their code or who sits down after them. They're like, oh, that's a forward, that's a backward, that's a left turn, that kind of thing. Plus, like I said, it does the math for them inside of it. I know we've had some issues in the past where they're supposed to be going backward, but someone forgets to put the negative in the distance and it goes forward instead of backward. So it kind of helps. It's like time saving things, right? As far as some of those very basic functions go, it makes it readable. It makes it so things like the negatives don't get left off or reverse or left turns, that kind of thing. So very happy with it. And I would definitely be happy to share what that looks like, because in some cases, people might say we're doing it the wrong way, but I know it works for them. And I know it really helps our kids understand the code and the readability of their robot runs.
Well, that sounds like a nice working project.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when you have as many things working as you do, there's always something bound to break in Wendy's wonderful world. And I understand you're having a problem with a particular thing called Phasmo. I don't even know what that is. So help me out with that.
It's one of my favorite games that I'm horrible at. So it's Phasmophobia for all of it. Yes, yes. So Phasmo for short is what it is. And they actually had a major update today. And I went to go launch it and check it out, and it starts to go and then crashes. I have changed which version of Proton it's running on. It still crashes. So I don't know what's going on there. It's one of the things that go hit the Proton information to see if anybody knows anything about it yet. But it's still pretty new as far as it being a bug. It's not made for Linux. So actually going to the developers on this one probably won't get you anywhere because they're not developing for the platform. But otherwise, it's been running really, really good on Linux. I'm kind of interested as to what the difference is on this current one. We'll eventually get it figured out, but I'm kind of bummed right now that Phasmo won't launch. But we'll figure it out. But you do have a game that is working.
I do have a game that's working. So since Matt decided not to show up today again, I have to take the lead on finding a game of the week. Mm-hmm. So the game of the week that I have found is actually a retro game that I used to play as a younger version of myself.
Ooh.
And it's called ALEPHONE, ALEPHONE. And what it is, it's a remake of the classic Marathon trilogy that Bungie Software made in the 90s, mainly for Mac OS.
Oh, wow.
But I did throw a link in the show notes, and it's Perfect. A phenomenal trilogy of games. The storyline is really neat. It is a very simple first-person shooter. There's not even really a jump function in it, so it's very, very foolproof. But if you like a good FPS with a really good storyline, I highly suggest it. You can download it as a package for almost any distribution, and it will just simply install. You can also go on the website and download each game individually if you like from their Git, and just have fun. It's just an old school, let's shoot some aliens and find out what kind of damage happened to our ship. And if you go back that far in the 90s, they were still discussing AIs, and there's references to an AI hallucinating in there, all things that we kind of encounter in today's world. And I even run into that in my everyday. So speaking of AI, I have this kind of AI farm that's running. It is not running right now because it is absurdly hot here in New England. Temperatures skyrocketing 100 plus degrees. It will feel like 120 outside. And that's just a little too warm to keep the home lab running without making my office and basement area feel like a blazing inferno. So that's kind of off for the week. It's getting its own vacation. I don't want to damage that equipment.
Right.
But one of the things that I want to stress about AI, and especially for younger kids that are learning coding, is don't just trust everything the AI is telling you. Sometimes the AI forgets about security. So I'll give you an example. Right. I will set an AI prompt that says, create me a Podman quadlet for running Nextcloud. And it will, do its little thing and come up with Nextcloud. And then I'll go to run that quadlet and it won't work. Now, if you don't understand how quadlets work and where things are supposed to go, you're just going to sit there and be angry or confused. Why doesn't this work? So expectations here, reality here, we got to find something in between. If I said, hey, create Nextcloud and scan the code for any potential security vulnerabilities, now we're getting somewhere. That's a better prompt. Students are going to use AI whether you teach them or not. It's just like anything else. You can teach them how to use it constructively, how to build a good prompt, and how to check their code or whatever they're working on to make sure that the information they're receiving is actually factual. So what I have done as part of my experiment is simply that. I'll feed it a container or a service and tell it to make it. And then I'll just continuously take the error and spit it back out into the AI and make it think and think and think. If I'm getting an error loop where it tells me to fix something that it just fixed, that's breaking the thing that it just fixed, then I know that I need to re-engage the prompt, or I need to use a different source of truth. So that's the big thing that I have found, is that you need to trust but verify all of the data that the AI is giving you. But it's an incredible learning experience. You can get probably a lot of concepts done. I've had it design meal plans for me. But even still, I'll check the meal plans and make sure that it doesn't have anything that I'm allergic to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know I've had students use it for, like, there's a line of code that they're reading and they don't understand what it means, to have them plug it in and have it spit it out what it means with a source, so they can go check that reference material is where they got that from. 100%.
And that's the thing you can do too, is you can say, create this for me, or check this code, and I want you to check this against public GitHub repos.
Right.
And that, again, just like a computer does whatever you tell it to do, the same goes for AI. It's just an advanced computer that you're giving input and it's giving you output.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I know I've tried to have it sometimes spit out EDLs for me for DaVinci. So what that is, for all of you who are not familiar with DaVinci, is you can import that into a timeline and it can have markers set up on it. So that way it's the right color, whatever you give that marker. It's a great way for chapters. But there's times that I'm like, hey, I need you to spit this out. And where it struggled the most is typically I just give it blue marker. So those are the ones that inside of my project are going to be the main chapter markers. I usually throw yellow ones in where it's an outtake, so the patrons get that, but that's something that's going to eventually be removed in the finalized show. And then pink markers, because I do pull different thumbnail images for Michael. In this case, sometimes I'll pull thumbnail images for this show. Just kind of depends on how I'm doing the thumbnail. But always for Michael on the other shows, and I drop pink ones where I'm going to come back where somebody's smiling or there's like a good reaction, something like that, so I can come back and find them. I have the AI trained pretty good when I'm just feeding it blue markers, that'll go in, clean them up, fix my spelling errors, or make them a little bit more fun than they were before. Usually that works pretty good. But in this case, this last time, I fed them all the markers, the blue, yellow, and pink ones, and it freaked out, and we were just going back in a circle and it wasn't fixing. And I'm like, okay, it's just going to be easier for me to go ahead and do it myself. Got it all done. And I'm like, this is what I wanted from you.
And that you can do too. You can give it your final output.
Right.
And say, this is what I'm going for, but how did I get there?
Right.
And that's another way, if you're trying to deal with a problem and tackle it from multiple angles. That's a helpful tip that I've used a couple of times, especially when I'm looking at, let's say, a problem with a Home Assistant integration. And I'll say, this is what I want to do, and this is something I found as reference. What am I doing wrong? And it will sit there and say, well, you put 10 spaces in this line of code. You should not do that. Here's a couple of fixes for you. And one thing I like to do, another pro tip, is I will say, what are some sources of information that I can learn more about this particular topic?
Yes. Yeah, I find that quite helpful too. I know when the kids were doing their innovation project research, they were constantly running into issues of they were typing in really good prompts into a search and just not getting the results that they wanted. And that's where AI was beneficial, because they could feed it exactly, hey, these are the type of things we're looking for. This is the type of research we're looking for. And then actually getting scientific papers related to the things that they actually wanted. So it's definitely beneficial. I'd love to have my own private one running for different things that I'm doing, but it's come a long way. And I believe you're right. And it's kind of one of the things that my co-mentors and I on the robotics teams have been talking about is it's something that's going to get used. So how do you use it in the most effective way where it's not doing all of your work for you? So we've covered a lot of awesome stuff on the show, but I do have a little like cleanup, touch up. Hey, this is what's going on with the show. And I know we've been gone for a while, but there's a new pretty cool update for all of you who like Spotify and are listening there, but now want to watch it there. Spotify has had video podcasts for a while, and now we are there on video. I went ahead on the last 2 episodes, so 110, 111, already have the video versions uploaded there. If you don't want Spotify, you can also check out YouTube or Rumble. We're now all 3 of those places for the video versions of the show. Now it's your turn to jump into the Vortex. Share your thoughts, drop your comments in the Text Digital discourse, or send us a signal through time and space via the textdigital.com/contact form. Want to connect with us? Outside the TARDIS, check the links in the bottom of the show description for our preferred corners of the web. And if you're looking for more fantastic journeys through tech, don't miss out on the Sudo Show, Destination Linux, Linux Saloon, and so much more at tuxdigital.com. Need to gear up for your next adventure? Visit the Tux Digital merch store to swag some legendary loot, whether it's a gamer-approved I Pause My Game to Be Here shirt or the ever-mysterious hashtag Team Wendy swag. Thanks for riding the open source time stream with us. We'll return next time with another twisted adventure talking tech, penguin-powered awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation mostly on topic, and never stop exploring.